Hello, what is up guys? My name is Mackenzie and this is week 6 out of 12 in my Design to Code challenge. So we are halfway through this challenge. Last week I designed a jobs board site. I tried to make it simple and clean, yet fun and inviting. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how I turned that PSD into the front end HTML and CSS. So let's do this. Okay, so we are going to dive in and turn this PSD into the front end HTML and CSS. So just a bit of a setup. I have my PSD open in Photoshop, obviously, and I've already gone ahead and set up a directory in Sublime. Inside that directory, I have the SCSS file. Inside of the SCSS directory, I've gone ahead and exported all the images we will need, for example, the logo and the various images for the logos and such. And the SCSS is compiling into CSS using CodeKit. And then I have it open in Chrome right here. So in the index.html file, I've gone ahead and added the HTML structure. So we have the head with the title. I've added a few things, for example, the normalize.css. I've also linked the style.css, which we will be writing our styles in. And I've gone ahead and set up a typekit to use the Proxima Nova font that we used inside of our design. If you try to go ahead and use this to use the Proxima Nova font, it will not work for you. So you will need to go ahead and set up your own typekit account if you want to use the Proxima Nova font. To begin, let's go back to Photoshop. The first thing I think we should do is this top bar. So to do that, we have these various colors. So what I'm going to do is first set up some variables for those colors. So let's go back to the styles.scss file, and up at the very top, oh yeah, one thing to note is I did go ahead and set the body to use the Proxima Nova font from Typekit. So that is the only styles I have written so far. So let's set up some variables for the various colors. So what I want to do is set up a main variable, and I'm going to go and grab the dark gray color that we used for the text. So let's paste that in. We also have this secondary color that we use for the subtitles and the info text. So I'm going to grab that. Let's create one called secondary. Then we have this border color. So I'm going to grab that and let's create one called border. And then finally, we have the 4 highlight colors. So what I'm thinking is I'm just going to do highlight _1, copy that, change it to 2, change it to 3, and change it to 4. So I'm going to grab the red color, put it as 1, grab the yellow color, put it as number 2, the blue color will be number 3, and the purple color will be number 4. And I'm just going to clean this up a bit. Make it look nice and pretty. Beautiful. All right, so now we have quick access to this. I'm going to just make a note, add a quick comment, say red color. And I will change this to yellow. This was the blue, and this was the purple. All right, so now we should be good to go. So to create this top border that we have in our design, all we need to do for that is right after the opening body tag, we need to create a div with the class of border. So I'm going to do div.border, and we don't need anything inside that div. We just need the HTML structure. So if I go back to the styles.css, the way we are going to write this is using a background image linear gradient. Let's go ahead and set that up. So border, we need the height to be 6 pixels. Let's make a border of 0. Let's make the background color default to the highlight 1. And then we'll do background image, and this is the bulk of the work. So we're going to do linear, gradient. Then inside of here, we want to do to right, and then we're going to do highlight _1, _1. And then we're going to go down below, do highlight _1 and 25%. So this is going to make it so the highlight 1 color goes from 0 to 25. And then we're going to say highlight 2 is going to go from, I feel like highlight, that's not spelled right. Highlight 2 is going to go from 25%. And it's going to go highlight _2 to 50%. And then we basically just do this on and on until we get all the way to 100. So we're going to do highlight 3, 50%, highlight 3, then we'll do 75%. Then we'll do highlight 4, 75%. And then we do highlight 4, 100%. And then we need to do one last one, highlight 4, 100%. So that should be good. And then lastly, we just need to set up the background size. So we're going to do 50% and 100%. Then let's just copy this, change the second one to a WebKit, or Moz, I'm sorry. And then remove the last one. So it's just going to be background size. So if we save that, go back to Chrome, you can see we have that pattern showing up, and it is going 50% of the width, and then it repeats. And then since each of the highlight colors are set to 25%, they take up 1/8 of the page, which is exactly what we want. Beautiful. And then this will grow and shrink as we extend or shrink the viewport. So it's exactly what we want. Perfect. So let's go back to Photoshop, see what we need to do next. So next we have the header with the logo and the navigation. So let's go back to Chrome and Sublime. Back in the HTML file, let's remove the hello world. First, I want to do a .wrapper class to wrap everything in. Then next, I want to create a header, and let's add a class of main, header, and a clearfix class. Then inside of here, let's do .logo. And for the logo, I'm going to add an image. And then remember, I exported out the images already. So I call the logo smile.svg. So I'm going to go to images, smile.svg. I'm just going to say smile as the alt. And then I'm going to create an h1 tag and say awesome. Let's do a span and jobs. And close that span. Then let's create the navigation. So I'm going to do nav.class of nav. And then I'm going to do a times 4. Actually, a times 5, I'm sorry. I'm going to say all jobs, full-time, part-time, freelance, and contract. So if I save that, go back to Chrome, we have this huge logo. Then we have the awesome jobs and the navigation. So let's go ahead and style it. So back in the styles.scss file, first let's set up the wrapper. So when we did our design, we created the wrapper as 750 pixels. So I'm going to create a wrapper class. I'm going to do width 750 pixels. I'm going to do a max width of 90%. That way when the viewport scales down, it will be a max of 90%, and there's padding on either side. And let's do a margin of 0 and auto to center it. So I can already save that and it'll take effect in Chrome. Shrink everything down a bit. Perfect. So next, let's do the clearfix class because we're going to need that. So I'm going to do clearfix before and .clearfix after. Content space and then display of table and then .clearfix after clear of both. Perfect. So let's go ahead and style the main header. So I'm going to do a main header tag. Let me add some space here. So let's do main header. I'm going to add some margin on top of 5em on top, 0, 3em on bottom, and 0. And then outside of here, I'm going to add the logo class. So let's style the logo. First, I want to target the image. Let's make it a width of 75 pixels. And we're going to float it to the left. Then the H1, let's float that to the left as well. Let's do a margin of 0 on top, 0 on the left, 0 on the bottom, and then 1em on the left. 0 on the right, 1em on the left. We're going to make it text transform uppercase. Text transform uppercase. Let's see. Let's go back to Photoshop. So we got the text transform. So let's go back. Also need a font size. Let's do 1.35em. And a padding on top, let's do 1.1em. And let's make the color that main variable. And then we need to change the font weight of the span inside of the H1. Let's do font weight of 400. So I'm going to save that, go back to Chrome. So that's not taking effect. Let's see what's going on. So the image is not getting these styles, but the H1 is. Logo, image. That would be why I misspelled width. So width of 75 pixels. There we go. Okay, so now back in Chrome, we have the logo as it should be. Now we need to style the navigation. So back in Photoshop, we can take a look. We want this to be aligned to the right. Then we want the color to be the secondary variable, the light gray. And then we want to push all of these to the left a bit. So let's go ahead and set that up. So I'm going to do .nav, and inside of here, I'm going to float the navigation to the right. Let's add a padding on top to push it down in line with the logo to be 1.75em. Then the A tags. So we're going to target the A tags inside of the navigation. Let's make the color that secondary variable. And we're going to push them to the left by doing margin left 1em. And let's remove the border from the A tag. Let's do text decoration of none. So I'm going to save that, go back to Chrome. Beautiful. So back in our design, we have the all jobs, the active one, being styled a bit differently. So let's take care of that. So I'm going to add a class .current, and let's say font weight of 700 and color of the main variable. So I can save that, go back, nothing happens. That's because we need to add the current class to the all jobs. So let's do .current, save that. Beautiful. Okay, so back in our design, the next thing we need to take care of is each of the job listings and then the timeline itself. So let's go ahead and go to the index.html below the header. So the way we want to set this up is inside of a UL, because each of these would work perfectly as a list item. That way, if there's no CSS at all, it would show up as a list of the jobs, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to create a UL, and I'm going to add an ID of timeline, because there's only going to be one timeline on this page. So inside of here, each one of these is going to be a link. So I'm going to create an ahref, and inside of the href, I'm going to create a list item. So I'm going to add a class of listing and a class of clearfix to this list item. So how we want to set this up is we have the, back in Photoshop, we have this image, and then we have the main job info, for example, the title and the company, location, date, etc. And then we have the job type, for example, full-time, contract, etc. So back in Sublime, I'm going to set that up. So for the image, what we want to do is create a div with a image wrapper class. Then inside the image wrapper, I'm going to create an image, go to images/twitter.jpg. I'm just gonna change it all to Twitter. Then outside the image wrapper, I'm going to create a div with the class of info to contain the title and the job listing info. And then inside of here, let's create span, and I'm gonna say span.job title. And let's say UX designer to match the job title. Let's do span with a class of job info. And I'm going to say Twitter. And then to get the bullet point, I'm going to do and bowl semicolon. Actually, you know what? We want to wrap this in a span. That way we can add some extra margin around it. And then I will say San Francisco. And then I'm going to copy that, paste it here, and then I'll finally do, let's just say January 1st for the date. All right, so out of the job info, we finally will need a span with the class of job type. And I'm also going to add another class and say full-time. So we're going to have an individual class for each of these. So we'll have full-time, part-time, freelance, and contract. Create that, and I'm just going to say full-time. So I'm going to save that, go back to Chrome, take a look. All right, so it's showing up as a list item, which is perfect. We got the image showing up, the title and job listing info, and the full-time. Perfect. So now all we need to do is go ahead and style this. So let's go down to the bottom, and I'm going to add the ID of timeline. Inside of here, I'm going to make it a width of 100%, so that way it goes to the full 750 pixels. I'm going to make it a position of relative. Let's make it a list style of none. That way the bullet points don't show up. And we're going to remove the padding. And then since each one of those is an A tag, I want to do A, and then let's remove the text decoration, none. If we don't add this, each of these will have a underline on the title and the info and full-time, etc. So we don't want that. So let's target the listing. So first, let's make a background of white. I didn't make that variable, so let's go up top and under border, let's make a white variable. And I'll say FFF. Perfect. So that's good. Next, we need to add a border. So I'm going to do border. Let's make it 1 pixel solid, and I'm going to do the border color. Let's make the border radius 0.3 em. Let's give it some padding of 1 em on each side and a margin bottom to push down the listing below it of 1 em. Let's do a position of relative. Z index is going to be 1, and we're going to do a display of table, a width of 100%. So the reason we're doing a display table is because each of the items inside of here, for example, the image wrapper, the info class, and the job type are going to act as table cells. That way we will be able to vertically align them in the middle, which is exactly what we want. So let's continue on. First off, let's target the image, the .info, and the .job type. So each of these is going to be a display of table-cell. And we want to vertically align them. Vertical, align middle. Let's make the font size on all of them 0.9 em. And the color is going to be that secondary gray. So I'm going to save that, just go back to Chrome and check. Beautiful, so it's already taken effect. Everything's vertically aligned. We need to style the image still, make it a bit smaller, and the title big, and style the full-time or the job type. All right, so let's start back in Sublime. Let's start with the image wrapper. So I'm going to target that. Let's make it a width of 60 pixels. Inside of there, let's target the image. Let's make it a width of 60 pixels as well. Display of block. Let's make it a margin of 0 auto. And let's give it a border radius of 0.25 em. So save that, go back to Chrome. Beautiful, so that's acting as it should. Now, back in Sublime, let's take care of the info. So first off, let's make it have a line height of 1.25. Then we're going to have a width of 640 pixels. That way it takes up the majority of the table width of 750 pixels. And let's add a padding left of 25 pixels. Then let's target the job underscore title. Let's do a font weight of 700. Let's make the color that main variable. And the font size is going to be pretty big, 1.5 em. Then we need to do the job info. It's going to be the secondary, the light gray color. The font size is going to be quite a bit smaller, 0.9 em. Actually, we already have that above, so we don't need that below here as well. Let's do a display of block, and we need to target the span inside of here to add the margin on either side of the bullet point. So let's do a margin of 0 and 0.75 em. And let's save that, go back to Chrome and take a look. Beautiful. So that's showing up as it should. Next, we need the job type. So let's get out of the .info class. Let's do .job type. So what we want to do here is text transform uppercase. Because remember, back in our design, let's go to Photoshop, we have each of these being bold, uppercase, and then we have this dot for each one. And we're going to do that all in CSS. So let's make it a font weight 700 to make it bold. Let's do a font size. It's going to be quite a bit smaller, 0.75 em. We need a position of relative. We're going to do white space of no wrap. That way it doesn't break. And then we're going to do a padding top 0.6 em. And we're going to do a width of 100 pixels. So inside of here, how we are going to do that bullet point or the circle is I'm going to do and colon before. We're going to do content, quote space. Oops. If I could type today, there we go. So we want the background color, let's say highlight 1. The width is going to be, let's see, 10 pixels wide. Height is going to be 10 pixels. Border radius, we're going to do 100%, so that way it's a full circle. Then we need to position it absolute. And this will be absolute relative to the job type. So we need to do left negative 20 pixels to pull it to the left a bit. And then the top, we're going to do 28 pixels. So I'm going to save that, go back and check. Beautiful. So you can see we have the bullet point showing up full time. That looks a little bit too high. Let's try 27. There we go, 27 pixels on top instead. All right, so now all we need to do is set up the classes for each of the various job types. For example, the full-time, part-time, contract, and freelance. So outside of the and before, well, outside of the job type, because remember this is a separate class, let's do .fulltime. What we need to do is change the color to highlight 1, and then we need to do and colon before. Then we're going to change the background color to the highlight 1 as well. And I can just copy this whole thing. Let's paste it a few times. This one will be part-time. This one we're going to call freelance. This one will be contract. And then these two will be highlight 2. Let's go down to highlight 3. Go down to highlight 4. All right, so if I save that, go back to Chrome, that should change colors. Beautiful. All right, so let's copy, go back to the index.html. Let's copy the listing a few more times just to see what we got. Make sure everything's working as it should. So I'm going to copy that from the A to the closing A. Let's paste it like 2 more times just to see. Beautiful. So it's pushing down 1 em on the bottom, So let's go back to Photoshop. One thing I did not do in the design, but I want to set up here is when you hover over a listing, I want to have a drop shadow appear. So let's do that by going below the .contract class. Let's add one more. Let's do transition all 0.3s ease in dash out. And then we're going to do and : hover. So on the hover state, we're going to do cursor pointer. And then let's do a box shadow of 0 pixels, 2 pixels, 40 pixels, and then 0. And then we're going to make this an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, which is pure black. And then we're going to do 0.01, and that is the alpha state or the transparency. So let's change or save that, go back to Chrome. So now when we hover over, it should add a light hover effect. Beautiful. That's exactly what we want. So cool. Love it. So now back in our design, we have the next things we need to take care of are the individual date and then this timeline. So let's go back to Sublime, and first we will create a date class. So all I'm going to do here is make a list item with the class of date. And inside of here, I will say January 1st, save that. So back in Chrome, it's not really showing up as anything. It's just unstyled. Let's go ahead and style that. So what we need to do is, I believe, let's see, we need to get out of the listing class. So right here, let's do .date. So what we want to do is display of inline block. Padding, we're going to do 0.6 on top and bottom and 0 on left and right. Let's make it a width of 100 pixels wide. Give it a background of the white variable. So the border is going to be the same as above, 1 pixel solid and the border variable. The border radius is going to be 3M. The font weight, we want it to be bold, so we're going to do 700. Font size, this is going to be quite a bit smaller, 0.65 em. Then we want to align the text in the center, and let's make it a Z index of 2. Let's position it relative, and let's add a margin of 1em on top and 2em, 0, and then 2em on bottom and 0 on the left. So the reason we're doing it like this is because we already have the margin bottom from the listing, so we're going to do less on the top and more on the bottom. So let's save that, go back and take a look. All right, so that's looking okay. It's a bit, the padding's a bit small. I want to bump that up a bit. Let's try, instead of 0.6em, let's see what 1em looks like. That looks better to me. And the font size, almost unreadable, so I'm going to make it 0.75 instead of 0.65. That looks better. All right, so I want to check things by, I'm going to copy, let's say 2 of the listings, go below the date, and paste those in, see what it looks like. Beautiful. All right, so really all we need to do now is, if we go back to Photoshop, we need to set up the timeline, or the line that goes through all of them, and then this load more button. So let's set that up. Let's first take care of the timeline. So let's go up to the top. Let's see, right above the A tag inside of the timeline, let's do and : after. So what we want to do is content space. We're going to make it a width of 1 pixel. Background is going to be 1 pixel. And we're going to have the border color. Height, we're going to make it 90%. So how we're going to get this to show up correctly is we're going to do a position of absolute. Top is going to be 5em. Left is going to be 3em. And we're going to make it a Z index, so it's behind everything of 0. Because remember, we made a Z index of 1 and 2 on the listing and the date. So let's save that, go back and check. Beautiful. So I can see one issue, it's extending down, but we don't have a date below that. So I'm going to copy in the index file. Let's set that date up. Let's say December 31st or something. Save that, go back and check. So it's going past it. It might be too much on top. Let's try 4, 3. Okay, so all we need to do is bring it back up a bit. So on the timeline, instead of top of 5M, let's do top of 3M, left of 3M. That looks good. All right, I'm going to quickly change out the logos and job titles and such. And I will fast forward through this so you guys don't have to watch all the boring stuff. And I will meet you on the other side. So all I want to do is, I'm not going to bother setting all those up. I'm just going to copy everything we've got and duplicate it to give some length to our demo application. Save that. Beautiful. This is looking great. So one thing I'm noticing is I want some padding on the bottom. So I'm going to go up to the top, body, in the styles.scss file, and let's do padding bottom of 5M. So now if I go back to Chrome, I can extend it a bit more. That way it's not so tight and closed up. Perfect. So we just need to do a few more things. So back in the bottom, let's go and we need to set up that load more button. So remember, in our design, we have this load more at the bottom. So we're going to set that up now. Let's go to the index file at the bottom. I'm going to do a div with the class of load more. Then inside of here, let's create a button with the class of button. And I'm going to say load more inside of that. So let's style what that looks like. I'm going to do .load _ more. So inside of the wrapper, all we need to do is text align of center to make it centered. And then let's style the button. So I want a border of 2 pixels solid and the highlight 4, which was that purple color. Let's do outline of none. Padding, we're going to do 1M and 3.5M on either side. Let's do a text align of center, center. Background is going to be transparent. Transparent, okay. And then we want to do a border radius of 2M, or 3M, I'm sorry. That way it's a half circle. And let's make the color the same, highlight 4. So let's save that, go back and take a look. I am getting an error. Invalid CSS after outline. Oh, okay. So outline I did semicolon instead of colon. Save that, go back. Beautiful. Let's add a hover state to this as well. So back in Sublimes, do &hover. Let's simply change the border color to 2 pixels solid. Maybe let's do the highlight main. Or I'm sorry, the main variable. And then let's change the color to the main variable as well. And above here, let's also add a transition. Say all 0.3s ease in-out. That way it kind of fades into the transition. So let's go back to Chrome. Now when we hover over, beautiful. That's looking good. All right, so since this won't take much to make it responsive, I want to go ahead and do that. So when we scale it down, it's already pretty responsive. The navigation breaks at about 800 pixels, a little bit less, maybe 768, around there. So I want to, let's just do that now. So back in Sublime, let's do and media only screen and max width of, let's do 768 pixels. So let's see, whoa, let's go up top, grab what we did for the main header and the logo and the nav. So I'm just going to copy all that, then we can tweak what we need to. So we have a margin of 5em on the top. I think we can shrink that down. So let's do margin of 3em and 0. So the logo, I'm going to remove the float. So do a float of none. The width will stay the same, so I'll remove that. The H1, let's make it a float of none as well. Let's remove the margin, so margin of 0. And let's make the font size a bit smaller. So we can remove the text transform uppercase. Let's make the font size 1.1. And we're not going to change the other stuff, so we can go ahead and delete that. Then the navigation, let's remove the float from here as well. And let's say padding, we're going to keep that same. Let's add text align of center. And then the A tag, let's say color is going to stay the same. So instead of margin left, we want the margin to be equal on either side. So let's do a margin of 0, and then let's make 0.5em on left and right. Move the text decoration and remove the current class. So let's save that and go back and see what it looks like. So if I scale it down past 768 pixels, that does not work as I thought it would. So let's inspect the element and take a look. Let's see, so it's not floated. Maybe we need a display of block. Oh, I think we need a display of, I got it. Okay, so what we need to do is on the logo class, we need to do a display of block, margin of 0 and auto to center it. And then we need to do a text line of center to center the awesome jobs, H1. There we go. So now when we scale it past 768 pixels, it'll break and center align everything. Beautiful. Okay, so really the only thing next we need to do is tweak the timeline. So I'm thinking the job info, the full-time, part-time, contract, etc., we will just simply hide on mobile because the user would still be able to filter between the various jobs. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's copy the media query and paste that in, close it. Then let's change it to, let's say, 600 pixels. All right, so let's target the timeline. And then inside of the timeline, the listing. So first I'm going to do .job type, and I'm going to simply do display of none. So let's go back and take a look, see what that looks like. Cool, that simply hides it. So one thing I'm noticing is the timeline is displaying past 100%. So I think that's because of the size of the listing. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is simply change the width of the listing. So 96% looks about right. So let's go up top and find the listing. Instead of 100%, let's make it 96%. All right, then back in the media query, let's do a few more things. Let's do the image wrapper, margin right. Let's make 1em. And the image itself, let's do 50 pixels wide. Width of 50 pixels to make it a bit smaller. Then let's do the .info. Let's make it have a width of 100%, padding of 0.4em on top, 0 on the rest. Then let's do the job title, and let's remove or reduce the size to 1.25em. So let's save that and go back and take a look. So the full-time hides and everything shrinks down a bit. Beautiful. And with that, I think we are done. All right, guys, that is all for this one. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and you learned a lot from it. If you did, give me a thumbs up below and maybe subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to tune in next week. I'm going to go step by step through creating a new UI design. All right, see you guys next week.